Hey Megan, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing amazing, doing amazing. It's great to see you and um, connect. As you know, I'm in the Orlando area. Whereabouts are you?
I am currently in Rhode Island, but I am preparing to relocate my three children and myself home to Chicago in June.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, cool. So, wow, you got a lot going on right now.
Yeah.
Um, for sure. Well, I'm honored to have you on the podcast, and I was hoping to actually just jump right into it. Um, you got this really cool background with a master's in rehabilitation counseling and certifications in like all these different types of, therapeutic modalities. What inspired you to specialize in trauma therapy?
Well, specifically the trauma therapy, I do ART, accelerated resolution therapy. I actually had a client that had a very, very specific traumatic event that involved the death of his mother. And he was very, very, very stuck. And I remember going to my supervisor saying, I gotta learn something for this kid. Like I can't not. And I said, I think I want to learn EMDR. And he said, yeah, I don't think I want you to learn that one. And I was like, okay. And he said, I think you need to learn this other thing, this ART thing. And I said, well, what is that? He's like, I don't really know, but I think it's better. So just go learn that one. And I was like, okay. And when I got trained in ART, there was, I don't remember how many clinicians, there were maybe 20, maybe more. And I would say half of them were already EMDR certified, but they were looking for a stronger tool. And they had decided that ART was it.
Awesome. So ART, like, could you maybe just explain like why it's so powerful, how it's, in your opinion, a little bit different than, other forms of therapies and more importantly, like why it's so effective over just like a traditional talk therapy?
In talk therapy, we are still kind of like driving the bus. Like we are making conscious decisions about what we're going to say, what we're not going to say, how we're going to, allow ourselves to show up. And when we do a treatment like EMDR is what most people, if they've heard of an eye movement treatment, EMDR is probably the one. Um, RT is a eye movement treatment. And what that means is I just move my hand in front of my client's face. And we do this all through telehealth. And they just sit still and they hold their head still and they follow my hand with just their eyes while they're visualizing the things that I'm asking them to visual, well, the things that I'm recommending them visualize. And um, it's effective because there's a couple of reasons. One, it's a process that we do every night while we sleep. So we are basically replicating REM. And if you think about some of the sayings that we have, like, oh, if you'll sleep on it, you'll feel better in the morning. Well, why is that? It's because when we're sleeping, our brain is, I call it cleaning house. And so the difference between when we're asleep is we're sleeping, our brain goes in and is like cleans it all up and is like, oh, maybe this will work for her. I don't really know. We'll see what happens in the morning. But when we're using ART, you're alert oriented, focused, you're able to decide if the work that the brain is doing is adequate or if it needs to shift. So it adds this, it adds this component of control and approval almost that the work that's happening is the right work. The reason I feel that ART at least, and I'm not trained in EMDR. The EMDR people were not very, when I tried to figure this out, they were not super cooperative with me to give me information on what the differences were. They were like, yeah, you should just get trained. And I'm like, oh, I'm already trained in this thing over here, so I'm good. But in ART, there's a piece that's where we ask the client or we invite the client to invite all of their former selves, birth to today, to bring the scenes, what we call the scenes or the traumas, or what you could use 1,000 words there, that the former selves need to get rid of, that they don't want to hold on to anymore. Now, when I say that, that sounds kind of scary. Like, oh my God, I have to look through decades or, of trauma. But the cool thing about it is the way I describe it is that you don't have to see the trauma. So I think of it like pizza boxes. So if you order a pizza, you know there's a pizza inside probably, but you don't know like what's on top or what the details of the pizza are. So I have them have their former selves bring their pizza boxes. They just start dumping pizza boxes into this pile. And then when we get birth to today, then when we get to today, we get to go ahead and destroy the pile however they want. I always say, like, you could burn it, you could launch it into space, feed it to a dinosaur, drop it in the Mariana Trench. I don't care. I don't care. All I care about is that once that pile is gone, there is absolutely no evidence that that pile ever existed. So if you have a burn pile, I want to make sure that there's no mark on the ground, there are no ashes, there's no smoke. So for burn piles, a lot of times people use like leaf blowers and stuff, big fans, because we got to get rid of all of it. I don't want there to be anything left, anything, because those little residual things, those will fuck you up later, perhaps. And then we get to just do more art, which is fine.
That's awesome. No, and it's trauma is like a really tricky thing because there's I think sometimes there's people who maybe they're like going through life and don't even realize that they have trauma and that it's kind of like running the show. So like, what are signs that trauma is kind of behind the steering wheel in people's lives?
So I worked in the ER for a long time doing assessments on behavioral health patients who would come in. And I always found it very interesting when I would, or even just in a regular intake, oh, do you have a trauma history? Oh, no, no trauma. And then like you get 20 minutes deep and they're like, yeah, my dad used to beat the shit out of me all the time. I'm like, whoa, like it just, we normalize our own trauma so much that we don't even recognize it as trauma often. Um, and so I feel like everybody has trauma. Like it's not up to me to decide what your trauma is. Like you get to decide that for yourself. So you may experience something and I may be like, that's not a big deal. But for you, it was like horrifying. So I feel like just part of the human experience is trauma. And if you study some of the laws, I know that you and I have been talking about that diversity and those things, those are what help guide us to get to the places where we're meant to be, where we get to our source, where we get to, our light, our calling, whatever it is. But if everything was easy and if we didn't have trauma, what would we be doing here? It's like it'd be like staying in kindergarten forever. Like that would be boring
Yeah.
and our parents would be mad. So in regards to signs, I mean, we could look at very classic ones, substance use, gambling, overuse of pornography, overeating, under eating, over exercise, under exercise, like anything that is not honoring our soul and our spirit, I think is a sign of some sort of trauma. And we traumatize ourselves all the time anyway, outside of the big T trauma,
Yeah.
just because we're so mean to ourselves all the time and we don't learn how to have and how to cultivate that relationship with ourselves. And so even if somebody were to say, yeah, I don't have a big T trauma, there's little T traumas in there all over the place, because I guarantee you that person is probably telling themselves they're not worthy, they're not good enough, they don't deserve it, you know, all that kind of stuff. And that's just how humans sort of start out until their brain fully develops or until they've got really good teachers and guides in their lives to kind of point out, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. It can if you want it to be. Like, I don't, it's your life. Like, do whatever you want. But like, it doesn't look like you're having fun or it feels good.
What's and I love how you kind of tie in this whole sort of like negative self-talk and things that start to kind of, I think, color the way that we view life and process things that have happened to us. Um, One of the biggest trending searches when I was getting ready for this and kind of looking at what are people looking for help with, one of the big words that kept popping up was post-traumatic stress disorder and anxiety. And it seems like those topics are just becoming more and more in the forefront. Like, how does something like ART, how does your therapeutic approach like address these issues differently, or is it not good for like certain things like general anxiety?
All right. So there are three places that we can kind of like put our time and attention. We can put it in the past. And when we do that, we're depressed, probably. We can do it in the future. And if we do that, we're probably anxious. Or we can set it in the present, which is the only place we have power and control anyway. So ART, it sends us into, we actually go all three places. So the way it begins is I have the client review this, watch the scene in their head like a movie while they're following my hand. And that's very it sounds so easy until you do it. And people are like, whoa, I can't do all this. But I explain it like, remember, we're severing a connection between the amygdala and there's two parts of our brain, and we're severing the connection from the data and the emotions. And so the idea of going back and forth between the two sides to me is like we're severing the connection. So we're going, when we view the scene, we're in the past. There's a part of the protocol where I have the client test out a future scene to see where, if there's any anxiety or stress. Most of the time there's little to none. um, and then when I release them from the session, now they're back in their normal life, they're back in their present, and they're no longer so attached to what happened and to what may happen, because they just feel good. And we know that when we are in that feel good place, good things just naturally start coming to us. When we are in a shitty place and we feel like crap, guess what comes to us? More shitty
Way
feelings.
more of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I've never thought of that before. The closest I think I've ever come to that is like Eckhart Tolle, the precious present or whatever, but it felt like a little too out there. But that actually makes a ton of sense that living in the past kind of brings up one set of emotions, living in fear of the future brings up a different, and that just being more present. That's pretty powerful. Was hoping to get like sort of a hot take moment, but antidepressants. When I was younger, I went to talk therapy, and psychiatrists put me on Zoloft, and I slowly weaned myself off of it in my early 20s because I felt like all it was doing was sort of numbing things and not really solving things. Um, I'm curious what if you have a take, and sorry if this is a faux pas question, but like if you have a take on antidepressants and how they kind of relate to like the type of therapy you do helping people get through trauma. I'm just wondering if there's sometimes a feeling that it blunts progress or if it's actually really synergistic. Just curious what your thoughts are.
So I am not a fan of Big Farm. I think that they don't give a fuck about any of us, because the amount of we know they make more money treating disease than curing disease. And I'm enough of a conspiracy theorist to believe that if you think they don't have a cure for cancer, you're crazy.
Yeah,
As a cancer survivor, the cancer was easy, easy. What fucked me up was all of the treatment. I beat cancer before I even got in the chair, in the chemo chair. I took care of it with sacred medicine. I know the moment it left my body. Um, and what wrecked me was all of the treatment, all of it, start to finish. Um, that being said, in regards to psychiatric medication, I have a couple thoughts. So I've worked with people, I've tried to do ART on people who are on medication. It doesn't work because I can't get in. So in that regard, the medication is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. It's preventing me, really the client, from accessing those feelings. And a client who's looking for the immediate gratification and like, or the cessation of these uncomfortable feelings, that's what they want, right? But we're not fixing anything. So, and honestly, how many people do you know on antidepressants who are still depressed?
a lot.
Oh,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
So is it working? Probably not. So, but that being said, I do believe that antidepressants or even anti-anxiety meds, which are a whole other set of risk, um, I think that they can be useful tools as somebody is learning new skills to kind of get them. I always think of the commercial where it may have been Zoloft actually, where the person's like in the hole. They're like, help, I can't get out. And so I feel like medication can be a good tool to help us get out of the hole. But the problem is that because of the way our society is set up and we like the instant gratification, we don't want to do the work. People are afraid of change. They want the quick fix. Providers, prescribers do not necessarily require a patient to be in therapy of any kind. They'll just fucking give you a med. They don't care. Oh, take this, take this, take that. And then that one doesn't work. Oh, we've got other ones you can try. And we'll make you a cocktail. And so now you're taking 6 medications. And by the way, none of them really work. And you can't sleep. So you take now this other stuff to sleep, but then you get up in the morning and you feel like ass because the medication fucks you up. You can't get up to work out. You're not going outside in the sun. You're eating like crap. And around we go. Where, one of my favorite quotes is a doctor who doesn't ask you about your diet and exercise routine is really just a drug dealer.
That so resonates with me. I love that. I love that. And
And
thank you. I was curious because if someone has deep seated like trauma, is really struggling, um, it sounds like you actually help them break through and get to the other side of it. And I'm just curious how that plays in, this whole medicating society plays into holding people back from a true breakthrough.
so I actually
Um,
had a client one time, she was so cute. She was nervous. So she's like, I took my benzo before this session and I was like, we can't do anything with you now because you don't have any feelings. And she's like, oh, I was like, it sounds shitty, but I want you to feel like shit when you come in. Like I want
yeah,
the, I need you. This is what I need my clients to trust me enough to be, to feel brave enough and safe enough to go into the darkest places of their mind and trust that I'm going to get them out. Now, the ART people and I we don't agree on everything. And one of the things that I don't know what their philosophy is on this now, but I remember being taught ART has nothing to do with the relationship between the therapist and the client. And I absolutely disagree with that completely because when I have somebody who is afraid to go in and doesn't know me or trust me, they're not going to go and they're certainly not going to bring me with them. Absolutely not. I have been absolutely stonewalled before when somebody wasn't ready and didn't trust that I was going to get them in and get them out. They're like, "Nope, I'm not going there." Okay, if you change your
yeah.
mind, you're going to try again, come on back. Or we'll do talk therapy for a little while so that they start to feel comfortable and safe and they know that, that cohesion is built. Because like, I wouldn't want somebody to trust, to like go into these places without some level of trust. That's not safe at
Well,
all.
especially if they've been through trauma, that's like the one thing is like they have all these walls up and protections to, keep themselves safe. But it's like they need to trust you to kind of get in there with them and sort of dig them out.
And I use that. I tell them I'm with you the whole time. I never leave anybody bleeding and broken. No one leaves bleeding and broken from my office. It doesn't happen. I don't allow it. Not permitted.
I'm curious about men when it comes to, dealing with this stuff because I think stereotypically there's a lot of men who struggle with mental health, and anxiety, trauma, whatever. Um, are you seeing like that men still are having a hard time like asking for help? And if so, like what do you think is going on there?
I I some, yes, for sure. I feel like it's gotten a little bit it, I'd like to say I think it's gotten easier, but I'm just thinking about some of the largely male populations that I've worked with, like first responders, for example. I've been connected with different first responder units in the state and thinking, because I've worked with first responders and the success rate with ART for them is absolutely through the roof. Like it, it is so like they come to me with some of these stories and I'm like, oh my God. So when I first got connected with some of these people, we really thought that this was going to be like a great asset to their departments. And the guys were like, "No, nope, nope, I don't have mental health issues. The trauma doesn't bother me. It didn't stick with me. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine." Meanwhile, I'm fucking sitting in a corner drinking like a pint of whiskey, but like it's good. It's good. It's good. It's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I personally feel like it's changing as time goes on and generations sort of learn and see, and it's like I don't want to go that route, but this might resonate. I have a really great friend, one of my best friends, who's a paramedic, and he's told me some stories, and I don't know, like sometimes how he sleeps at night, just some of the stuff he's seen. Shifting gears totally away from just trauma for a minute, um, multitasking. This is something that I'm witnessing in life, and that when I was kind of going out and crowdsourcing some questions, in a weird way, what kind of came up was this topic of multitasking and how people will watch TV while they're scrolling on their phones. They're at work. It's like they're messaging someone and then replying to an email and then hopping on a phone call and it's like constantly their brain is jumping around. I'm curious from where you sit if any of that is showing up in your practice. If you think there's a toll on people's mental health from just chronic, constant multitasking.
Absolutely. We Oh, there's the data supports that. It's there's so many reasons why it happens. I mean, I think technology is so amazing, yet so terrifying at the same time. And I think that the addition of having a handheld computer in our pockets accessible to us all the time is extremely risky. Social media, the founders of social media were brilliant. They took the two most powerful motivators. They took instant gratification and intermittent reinforcement, wove them together to create these systems in place that keep us completely distracted and unattached from what's happening in the present. Again, it goes back. We're not, when you're desk scrolling, you're not present. You're fucking elsewhere. You are
Yeah.
like gone, gone. So we live in a society where there are a lot of expectations, and people feel like they're going to be rewarded if they're high achievers. I find that a lot of my high achievers do so because they're working to manage their external environment, because when their external environment, when they feel like it's under control, they have more peace inside. So this is really true for like HSPs, which is a highly sensitive person, which is an actual, it sounds like I'm making it up, but it's actually like a real thing. Um, or light workers or like empaths. Um, Technology makes it really easy to multitask, but we know that when somebody has a laser focus on something, the outcomes are better. We also know that chunking time is more effective. So I'm a huge believer in scheduling everything. And because we know it will get completed, or there's a better likelihood, and it gives us time to focus on something. And when we're focusing on like 8 things, I have kids. If we're watching Bluey and I'm on my phone, you sure as shit know, they'll be like, "What are you doing? Like, get off the like, come on, we're watching Bluey." And I'm like, "You're right, you're right, you're right." But I mean, again, it's so hard because there's such a pull to it because of the or the immediate gratification and the intermittent reinforcement. Now, instant gratification is you post it, you get the likes. Okay. But the intermittent reinforcement piece, that's the piece that really hooks us in, because intermittent reinforce. So they did a study where they took rats and they gave the rats a lever that would give them a food pellet. The rat, so, and so some of the rats, the lever, every time they pushed the lever, they would get a food pellet. And so the rats would like push the food pellet, they'd get full, then they'd like go off and do their rat stuff, whatever rats do, I don't really know. Okay, and those rats were like fine. They were like good. They're like fed, they slept, they were like normal. Okay. Then we had the rats that it was intermittent, meaning like maybe it was one push, maybe it was 20, maybe it was 3, maybe it was 85, maybe it was 17. The rat never knew, never knew. That rat stayed at that lever until it died.
Shit. So sort of like the casino, the proverbial slot machine effect, where you're just sitting in front of it, just mindlessly going. It's like a dopamine hit. You're sort of seeking that. Is that right?
Yes. And so here's the thing with dopamine hits. So we can turn good goal setting into the dopamine hit. So like if you have a target, let's say you decide I want to be a morning workout person, and the alarm clock goes off and you're like, "Oh my god, it's so early, I don't want to do this." But you get up and you do it anyway. If you shift your thinking just enough, that can be the win, right? I fucking got up and did this today. Look at me. Woo! High five. But if we don't teach ourselves to think that way and to view the things that we do in that way as the reward, the activity, the action, the discipline is the reward. And if all we're looking for as the reward is the outcome, you're fucked. It's never going to, you will never be happy, because then it's becomes, I'm going to be happy when? I'm going to be happy when I graduate high school. I'm going to be happy when I go to college. I'm going to be happy when I graduate from college. I'm going to be happy when I get married. I'm going to be happy when I have a house, when I have a kid, 3 dogs, 6 dogs, whatever. Again, you're not sitting in the present. You're not. And so guess who's never happy? Because you're,
Me. Yeah. No, anybody that does that, this is like striking a chord with me big time. Totally.
well, we should talk more.
Wow. Yeah, seriously, seriously. Um, I'm thinking about this kind of related to, life is really stressful. However you sit politically, it's a crazy time. Recession, fears, or economies is stressful. Just life in general. I think there's this trend of people just checking out to feel like mentally they can get a break from it, and that might be where the whole doom scrolling on social media, or getting into drinking or pornography or whatever it is for the people. Does this have an effect, like when you're working with a client or seeing somebody that, having a consultation with them, is there a challenge with you, Megan, where, how do I word this? They're kind of, they're getting a bit of a cheap reward, right? At the expense, like it's blunting sort of their experience with life, and the like a better reward that you could sort of coach them through. I don't know if I'm wording that right, but are people selling themselves short by sort of doing these things? Does the therapy that do you work with people, is it able to rip them away from that and kind of create healthier habits? It might be a stupid question, but it's something that I'm just thinking as we're talking.
I don't think that's a stupid question at all. So it would be great if there was like a magic button that I had, or like my magic wand would work and I could just go poof, you're going to make good decisions. That would be fantastic. But the the truth of the matter is it's a decision that we each get to make every moment of every day. And so when I talk about goal setting with people, I'll often say what I suggest. So I don't let people goal set unless it's in a SMART goal context, which stands, it's an acronym: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. So when we do a goal setting, what I tell people is, like, in your mind, write down your goal on like a little card and stick it in your pocket over your, like your breast pocket over your heart. And every time you go to make a decision, like peek in your pocket to remind yourself of the goal and say, is this decision going to get me closer to my goal or farther from my goal? Now, there's no judgment. Again, everyone has their own lives. You do whatever you want. But if that goal is really important to you, you need to decide if this immediate gratification, this immediate reward, this immediate dopamine hit is worth either staying where you are or maybe even taking a step or two away from the goal. So this is where we go back to the idea of taking that step forward towards the goal can be viewed as the reward itself, because you are making movement. There is forward progress. If all forward progress is looked at as a grind, or like it's annoying, or we're resentful, we're like, oh well, this person doesn't have to work as hard as I do, like you're that it sort of like negates all the things. And so the idea is that the more we can reward ourselves from in here, sorry, my dog is crying, she's kind of annoying. The more we can reward ourselves from in here, the more likelihood we're going to have to be successful, because this is the only place we're guaranteed. Like, if you rely on anybody else in any capacity to validate, to reward as a coping strategy, you are running a risk, because you cannot. And it sounds sort of sad a little bit, like people are like, but I can't rely on other people. How's that working out for you? Not, not. Which isn't to say other people are not necessarily reliable, but when it comes to strategies and it comes to rewards, it's risky. So if you were to come to me and say, hey, Megan, if I have a 10, if I'm at a 10 trigger, my 10 reward is a massage. Okay, I get it. What happens when your massage therapist is out sick? What happens if they double book and they can't get you in? Oh, and by the way, are you really going to get into your massage therapist that day when you need it? No. Um, so if we can figure out the strategies from within and validate from within, it just sets us up for success, because the only relationship we are guaranteed start to finish on this planet is the one with ourselves, which goes back to why self-talk is so critical. So if we don't learn how to talk to ourselves properly with kindness, love, compassion, empathy, positive regard all the time, or as much as possible, that relationship is going to suck. It's going to suck. It's going to be miserable. It's going to be uncomfortable. We're going to be unhappy. And we think we're going to go have a healthy relationship with somebody else. We can't even do it with our fucking selves. What are we talking about here? So I
Yeah,
don't know.
but they'll save us, and no, I'm being facetious. Yeah,
That's my
if I could fix them, I'm way better, and I'm totally worthy. Yep.
yes. So that's what happens is we get into this like I I have I have I have a client who is telling me, he's like, yeah, I realized all of my friends are really depressed. And I was like, oh, so it's like the blind leading the blind. That's a good choice. He is the one in the friend group who is in active therapy, and we've been together a long time. And I it may or may not be, I kind of don't bullshit, really. I mean, like I bullshit, but like this, like I pretty much a straight shooter. I'll tell you how it is. And I asked him, I said, so what's it like for you to be the person that everybody comes to? So even in this peer group that he has, which he loves his friends, and I love his friends for him. Like this is not, but it's interesting because there is this level of validation that he's getting that I'm worthy, I'm important, I can help, and that makes him feel good. So like it's just something to notice. Like I don't get to make decisions what to do with that, but if I'm gonna notice something, I'm gonna say it. Like, what do you think? And people that when noticings are brought forward with love and compassion without judgment, people sit with it very differently. Like if I were to say something like, yeah, no, this is what you're like, no one's going to want to talk to me ever. They'd be like, shut up. But I don't know if it's true. I just, as the outsider looking in, you've invited me in. I'm just like checking it out with you. Like, this is what I'm seeing. So we look for validation in weird ways that we don't even recognize, which is why having a therapist or a coach, not the coach so much because that's a whole different thing, but having a therapist to come in and kind of help. I always describe it as showing the mirror. Like I just hold the mirror. I am never telling somebody they don't already know. Never, never. I am not that smart. I am not an expert in anyone I talk to, but I can see shit and I can hold the mirror for you to look at on your own. And what you decide to do with that is up to you, and I'll support you whatever way you go. And if you pick a choice that I disagree with, I'm going to do my best to figure out, to game plan it with you, to keep you as emotionally, energetically, spiritually, psychically, physically safe as we can.
I love that. I love that. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about, you hold the mirror up to people. You've talked about having people like maybe go outside, get some sunlight, like all these things that we get away from us the more that we check out, or the more that we sort of bury ourselves in bad habits. Um, it almost sounds like you take a bit of a holistic approach, right? Don't really love the idea of pharmaceutical intervention. So, like, in what ways do you encourage your patients to incorporate like mindfulness or other holistic practices into their daily lives, and kind of how do you use it in your treatment plans?
So it starts really, really, really small, really small. So the example I always use is if you came to me and you said, hey, Megan, I'm going to run a marathon. I'm going to go run 10 miles tomorrow. And I'd be like, oh, all right. Do you even have running shoes? No, no, it's fine. It's fine. I've got Converse. It's fine. It's fine. I'm going to go. We'd be like, all right, so you're probably going to get hurt and you're probably never going to run again. So this goes back to kind of the goal setting. So we need to start with small, specific, realistic goals. So like, how about we just look at running shoes to start? Do you even have money to buy good running shoes right now? Okay, so you get paid in 2 weeks. Okay, so let's plan so that in 2 weeks you can budget for these new running shoes. So I have my new thing right now, or one of the things I have multiple people working on for some, things always come in clusters, which I don't know if that's because of me and the manifestation piece, or that's just where my head goes, or if that's just I don't really know. It's interesting to me though. So I have two people right now who've decided they wanted to become readers, like read books. And when we are starting to habituate a behavior, people aren't going to like this. So moderation is not the way to do it. Not. Because if you say something like, oh, 3 times a week, the gym, that's good. That's good enough. Are you going to go 3 times a week? But if you decide, I am a gym goer, that is part of my makeup, that's part of my identity, and I go to the gym every day after work. Before I even leave my office, I put on my gym clothes and my sneakers. I don't even go home because I know if I go home, I'm going to sit down on the sofa and I'm going to get a pint of Ben and Jerry's and I'm going to watch TV and I'm not going to leave the house because it's comfortable and my cat is on my lap. So I just go straight to the gym. When we are habituating a behavior, all, all it takes is one time of not doing the thing and we're done. We're out. We're like, it's not worth it. I can't do it. I didn't do it yesterday. I'll start again on Monday. I'll start again next week. It'll be fine. And then next week turns into next month. And then and then we get all the way back to January even. And oh, it'll be my New Year's resolution. Weird. It's been your New Year's resolution for the last 15 years. How's that? We have to do something different. And it's People, it's all discipline, it's all habituation. And we do not habituate in an 80-20 model. We just can't. That's not how we work. Once it's habituated, I don't even necessarily like 80-20, the 80-20 rule. I like more of the 90-10 rule because I know how easy it is to unhabituate something. It's so easy. So, but if we're going to subscribe to one of those, we can't have day one be the 10% that we're not doing the thing. Like that doesn't count. So in the 80-20 rule, it says that 80% of the time we do the thing. 80% of the time I make my kids brush their teeth. 80% of the time I make my bed. 80% of the time I eat the broccoli, like whatever it is, doesn't matter. And then the 20% I can fuck off. Like I can not eat the broccoli. My bed looks like shit. Like my kids, they've got like green stuff in their teeth. It's fine. But if you don't have it habituated, it's always going to be the 20%. The rarity will be what you want to be the 80%. So I know people preach moderation, and I have too, but in the last couple years, I've kind of come to the conclusion that moderation is setting us up for moderation. It's setting us up for mediocrity. And that's okay. But if you want to change your identity and you want to become more than you are, that is the opposite of mediocrity. Mediocrity is you just stay right where you are and you're cool with it. Or not, probably not, but you pretend you are because change is hard and scary and people are lazy.
So do you, if I understand this correct, it's like you try to not overwhelm them with 100 things that they have to do right off the bat, make it approachable, but try to weave it where it like hard press at the beginning to do it every day and ingrain it as a habit, but an achievable, attainable habit, and build from there.
Yeah, so I forgot the reading parts. This particular client was like, well, like I could probably read for like 20 minutes. And I said, no. I said, we're going to read for 10. And she's like, 10? I was like, yes. We're going to read for 10 minutes every day, 2 weeks, maybe a month before we do any changes. Week number one, she's so funny. So week number one, she's like, I read 6 days. And then that seventh day, I was like, fuck Megan. And that's her spirit. So I was like, you know what, for you, I love that you did that because you really honored that, like, fuck authority. Like, that's just, so I was like, that's perfect for you. But guess what? The next week she read every day. And the week after that, she read every day and finished her book. And on the last day she finished her book, she doesn't even know how long she read for. And she immediately picked up the next book. She is finding joy. It was manageable. It wasn't overwhelming. And I said, you do not get to you cannot read for 15 minutes in the beginning. If we're saying 10 minutes, it's 10 minutes because so discipline, motivation goes like this. Okay. Discipline is like this. And so if people are going 15 minutes, 3 minutes, no minutes, 5 minutes, like that. So 10 minutes, just 10 minutes. And 10 minutes for her was easy. I have another client who's working on mindfulness. And he's like, well, I was going to sit for like 20 minutes and just body scan. And I was like, oh my God, no, no, 3 minutes. He's like, what? I was like, can you do it for 3 minutes? He's like, yeah. I was like, of course you can. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. He still hasn't been able to do it daily, but when he does it, it's manageable. And he's like, I got this. I can do this. Because what happens is if we overcommit and we oversell ourselves on something, then we just feel like crap because we can't attain the goal. And we feel like a loser. We feel weak. We feel like all this yucky stuff. And again, it goes back to if we feel crappy, what are we attracting to ourselves? More crap. Good things don't happen to us when we feel like shit generally. So
Yeah.
small, tiny meditation is another. I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. I'm like, fuck you are. No, you're not. Like, you're going to meditate. No, it's not going to happen. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, guided meditations for children because they're small, they're simple. And when we're working with that part of our brain, it's really the child brain inside of all of us anyway. So I really like using a lot of children's modalities for adults when we're starting a new behavior because it makes sense to that part of our brain.
I can relate to that. I think a lot of people listening to this or watching this can, especially when it's like we set such lofty goals we never attain, and then it's just this vicious cycle of shame and all of that. I'm hearing you talk about, okay, so helping people pretty quickly move through some pretty traumatic stuff in their lives, helping them to remove these sort of self uh, sort of deprecating talk patterns, helping them establish new habits that start to move them in the right direction. And it's like I'm thinking about how therapy is more mainstream than ever. At least more acceptable for people, than maybe it was 50 years ago or whatever. When especially for guys when it was viewed as weak or whatever. Um, but in my research, it looks like mental health statistics are getting worse. Like, is that true? And what's going on there, in your opinion?
Well, I think that some of it is, I think there's a couple pieces to it. I do think that there is that this is going to sound terrible. I do think that there is an element of it being trendy. I think that sometimes people, in order to fit in, when they see stuff on social media a lot, they just gravitate towards it. I think that's why pharmaceuticals are advertised the way they are, because it gets people thinking, "Oh, I fit that category." Like you probably don't. You might, but like a lot of people and prescribers will just give meds typically. Um, I think that there is a lot of strife and conflict in the world. And I think that most people are consuming media filled with strife and conflict. And again, if we go back to the law of attraction, if that's what you're consuming, that is what you will be attracting. So we don't spend time collectively, at least in our culture, really embracing the stuff that makes us feel good. So again, going back to being outside, sitting with nature, spending joyful time with children, if it's your own children or other children or pets. Pets are so underutilized in regards to anxiety and depression. So is exercise, so is sunlight, so is proper nutrition. So we know people eat like garbage, and we also know, or they're starting to discover or agree, that mental health actually begins in the belly. It doesn't begin in the brain. So if we are filling our bodies and we are consuming garbage, whether it's in our mind or through our mouths or through our skin, because if you're putting crappy lotion on your body, it's still getting in your body. You're still consuming it. Why would we think that mental health would be improving? It wouldn't. It's not. It won't. But people don't want to take ownership. They don't want to take accountability. They don't want to go, God, I fucked up my own life. This is all my fault. When I tell people that I am solely responsible for getting cancer, they're like, what do you mean? You didn't do that to yourself? I'm like, I sure as shit did it to my, what do you, no, I did it to myself. My cancer was mine. It was perfect for me. I made choices throughout my life that set me up for it. And God, the universe, source, whatever, decided that, oh, she's not learning the messages. So guess what? We're going to slap her with a 2x4. We're going to give her some butt cancer and we're going to see what she does with it. So, but I've never looked at it as anything other than that. That's why I was never mad. Not once. The treatment pissed me off because that fucked me up. But cancer itself,
There's
it was,
there's power in taking accountability and taking ownership of something instead of getting into a victim mindset or whatever, because then you don't have power over it. It's the thing is the one that has the power over you. That's
people don't like that because then it's their responsibility to fix it. We don't want to do the work. We'd rather just go, it's his fault, it's her fault, it's my genetics, it's my biology. Fucking own your shit. That's where all the power is. That's where you get to make everything happen. If you don't own it, you're going to sit in that place of mediocrity and feel sorry for yourself and live in victim stance, and you will never be happy and you will never succeed or get anywhere you want to be, ever, ever. Own your shit.
amen. Shit. I love it. No, I love it. I think this is a lot of people are probably listening to this being like, she's speaking a lot of truth. Um, since the pandemic, we all, I think it's been really good in the sense that it's kind of taken people where they might live in a area that doesn't have a lot of therapists near them. It's made it where I could be in Florida and connect with you in Rhode Island, and that's pretty awesome. Like, how has this shift to telehealth impacted your practice and client outcomes? I'm just curious if you could sort of speak on that for a moment.
So COVID for me was, this is going to sound terrible. The timing of COVID was a godsend because I was I was at the I was at the beginning part of my treatment that destroyed my body. And I had something called lower anterior resection syndrome after they like resectioned my colon or my rectum. That's because that's where I had the cancer. And I had what's called fecal urgency and incontinence. So for much of COVID, I was on a headset sitting on a commode in my office because I couldn't do anything else. Um, we I couldn't have asked for it to come at a better time. That sounds so selfish, but it's true. Um, when COVID first started, there were a couple weeks where we didn't know what was going to happen, and we were just everyone was just like the whole world. Everyone's like, "What is going on?" And Medicare, Medicaid is what drives our payments. So, like for cash people or therapists who only took cash, it probably wasn't as big of a deal. But for if you're an insurance taker, it was very scary because they weren't telling us whether or not they were going to reimburse us or not for telehealth sessions. No one was set up for telehealth, really. We would get in trouble for telehealth. There was no HIPAA compliance. It was nothing. It was just, we were all just fucking winging it. And I will admit that I was not sure what the efficacy of telehealth was going to be. I was definitely like, maybe, I don't know. And what I have found is that it reduces compassion fatigue for the provider, which is a godsend. Well, for me anyway, rarely, rarely have call outs or no shows because they can go fucking sit in their car in the parking lot at work. Like it's easy now. They don't have to, and a 38 to 53-minute session now is a 38 to 53-minute session. That's our time is weird. They've set weird numbers. I don't know. Whereas before, you would need that time, plus you'd need 20 minutes to drive in, maybe 5 or 10 minutes to wait and go to the bathroom, and then another 20 minutes to get back to the office or home or pick up the kids or whatever. And it reduces the you're not going to run into people. I'm in Rhode Island, and Rhode Island currently, and Rhode Island is really small, and it's
Yeah.
everybody knows everybody. It's really weird. And I actually had clients who were brother and sister that did not know they were both seeing me, and I did not even know they were brother and sister for like a year. I was like it. I've had neighbors run into each other. Yep.
Yeah, that sucks.
So all of that concern that people have about being outed in therapy is just it's gone. It's gone. And I think that because so many people because it became so much more accessible, it definitely helps reduce the stigma that people have if there was a stigma. Um, and I don't know, like maybe a year into COVID, we weren't sure if they were going to let us continue telehealth or not. There were rumors all the time they're going to pull the plug on it. We're going to go back 100% in person. It was terrible. And most providers I know was like, no, because it was just so much more effective. Now I have some clients who and it's not even my clients, but some people only want in person, and that's fine. Um, but I would say the majority of people are absolutely okay with telehealth. And it's so normal now to be in this kind of scenario where you're talking to someone through a screen. Are there disadvantages to it? Yes. Um, but I feel like the outcomes are the outcome. We know that the best predictor of therapeutic outcome is the relationship between the therapist and the client. It has nothing to do with modality, except for maybe ART. It has nothing to do with the training. It has nothing to do with where the therapist went to school or where the therapist lives, maybe except Rhode Island, because I would never let a non-Rhode Island clinician see a Rhode Island client ever, ever. It would not work. Rhode Island is very strange. Um, but it's so as long as this relationship is there, it doesn't matter. And I have people who only like the phone and they're fine with that and it works. And it's a mindset. So if you go into therapy thinking this is what I like, this is the person I want to talk to, and this is how the relationship has to be, there is a greater likelihood of it being successful just for the placebo effect. Like and the decision, you make the decision. This is how my therapy looks. This is how it works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, and so as we're talking, I'm thinking there's a lot of people who are going to be thinking like Megan is really cool. Like I love her energy. I think that that's someone I would trust to start to help me with some things. But maybe there's others that aren't quite there yet. If For anybody that's listening or watching, and they're like looking for kind of a couple of things that they can incorporate to start to just create a little bit of space, and take a step to improve themselves, like what are like one or like two or three practical tools or exercises that they can implement to manage things like stress or anxiety or whatever.
I think that really the first one is to the big one. There's so many places to start. But my most the thing that I say the most in session and out of session is self-talk, because again, that is the only relationship we're guaranteed. Four things in life. Four, that's it. You were born, you're gonna die, things are gonna change, and the only relationship you're guaranteed is the one with yourself. Everything else is a crapshoot. People will say you have to pay taxes. No, you don't. Sure don't. You may not like the consequence, but you don't have to. That's a difference there. So I feel like that's really the place to begin. But it's so much more complex than that, because on the cuff it sounds so easy, but self-talk is it's very insidious and it's very sneaky, and we may think that we're saying things in a way that is like correct or positive, but oftentimes we're not. So like a silly example would be like if you spill the milk and your initial reaction would be, I'm such a dummy. So instead you reframe it, I'm not a dummy, it was an accident. Okay, but that little kid brain doesn't hear that I'm not, it still just hears dummy, you're a dummy. And and these are things that you would never say to, like, if you have kids or you have a favorite like niece or nephew or something and they spill the milk, you're never gonna, you're a fucking idiot, fucking spilling the milk, what's the matter with you? And if you do, they're probably not gonna like you and you're probably not a nice person. If that's like it may happen from time to time, but if that's your baseline, but that's our baseline with ourselves all the time, all the time, all the time, all the time. So if you're looking for the biggest bang for your buck, figuring out how to have a healthy, loving, compassionate relationship with yourself. I'm not saying positive self-talk 24 hours a day. That's not reasonable or realistic or attainable. Even the Tom Brady's and the Oprahs of the world have those moments where they're like, who do I think I am? And then they pause and they go, wait a minute. Oh, that's right. I'm Tom Brady. I'm Tom Brady. But it doesn't mean that he doesn't know where he comes from. If you ever I watched something the other day with his combine. It's If you watch that combine and you know anything about athletics, he does not look like an athlete, but he knew in his head who he was. He decided before he probably ever stepped foot on a football field, this is who I am and this is who I'm going to be. And he just didn't let anything stop him ever, ever. And look at what happened. Now, I don't think that he's an outlier in ability, like ability to manifest or to make things happen. I think he's an outlier in discipline. That's all.
Yeah, no, there's a mental strength there, and then a resilience that gets built over time through like that positive reinforcement, and yeah,
But
that's powerful.
we
That's
have to
powerful.
make a decision. It's a decision. Each second of every day is a decision how we want to show up. And unless we own that, we're going to be stuck. And again, like you said, I think it's empowering. Like, how amazing is that I get to determine the outcome of my life? Like, I like that. I don't really want anyone else to drive that for me, because they don't know, they're not inside here. They don't know what feels good to me. I could explain it to them, but it's not the same as experiencing it and feeling it and having it rage through your body when it feels good, and continuing to do that, or when it feels bad going, ooh, I don't like this. I got to make some changes here because this is not how I want to be. Why would I give that power to anybody else?
That's so true.
I've given that power to other people, and how's that turned out for me? Oh, like, not great, not great. So, but you got to own it and not be afraid. Well, I mean, you can be afraid. I mean, being afraid is fine, but you need to you need to have some courage and remember that the only time we grow is when we're in a place of discomfort. We do not grow in the known and familiar. We just can't. It's not what happens. So if you take a seed, you can get a seed to sprout without the discomfort of being stuck in the ground, but it's not going to grow. You're not going to get a tomato plant sitting on your counter. I don't think. I'm pretty sure you won't. So if you think of a seed, you plant it in this squishy, dark, wet, smushy place that's like all squished. And the seed is like, I just want sun. And so it grows and it climbs and it gets out of the dirt. And if you watch like the video, the footage of like when a plant comes out of the ground and it like, you could just see it just goes, it like takes a breath.
Yeah, like the time lapse, it kind of comes up and just,
That word, the time lapse. Yeah.
yeah,
It's in it. You can, if you want, you can feel it. Like, that that feels so good. Watching and another example, watching, it's so gross to watching caterpillars turn into butterflies. Have you ever done that?
I haven't.
Everybody should do it because it is. I have kids, so that's like, we do this every year, but it is gross and miserable. What like so it's they're little caterpillars. They're cute and fuzzy, and they're like crawling around in their little cup. And then they turn into these chrysalises, and the chrysalises like shake and like do weird things, and it just doesn't look very comfortable. Like in the beginning, they're comfortable because they're just like laying there or hanging there. And then they're in these chrysalises for, I don't know, like a few days, a week, whatever. And then all of a sudden you start to see this goo come out. It is gross. And it comes out and you watch them like struggling and fighting, and some of them don't make it. And then they come out as these butterflies. And then there's that one butterfly who's like a jerk and is like bigger and stronger than all the others. So he like beats up the other butterflies, and the other butterflies like, eh. And they're like fighting over nectar and they're flying around. It's just crazy. It's crazy. But that is what growth is. That is what expansion is. If it was comfortable and easy, everybody would do it. Every
Yeah.
It's work, it's discipline, but it's worth it. It's worth every fucking second of it because it's powerful and it's empowering and it's ownership and it's yours. No one can take that away from you ever, ever. But you have to own it. You have to make the decision to do it.
I love that. I love that. And I can't even believe that you and I have sat down, just started BSing, and that already an hour has flown by. And I want to be super respectful of your time. Um, I think we're going to have to do a part two at some point because this has been really amazing. But is it okay if we have time for like one more question? Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Um, I was actually hoping, instead of more or less asking you a question, sort of maybe some freedom to sort of take this wherever you want to. Just if there's anything that you would like to share about anything we've talked about or anything we haven't that you really are hoping you could leave our listeners and viewers with, um, before they kind of go on with their day.
Yeah. You asked the question and I was like running through my data bank going, oh, what is it? What is it? And I know what it is now. So when I was first diagnosed with cancer, my friend of mine said, "You need to come see this guy I know. He's a shaman. He's a shaman." And I have kind of a lot of experience with illegal substances in my former years, and so it wasn't unusual to be invited to an experience like this. So I was like, "Yep, I'm going to come." So I flew out to San Diego and I met with this guy and we did a number of different journeys. And when we used psilocybin and we used DMT, and when we used DMT, I described them in my mind how I call them the DMT gods and goddesses, how they look, like the blowy things like at like the oil change place.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them. And they're like blowing around and like, and like you can get scooped into, for me anyway, my experience, you can get like, they can like take you in and like kind of derail you. So you kind of have to stay focused on like where you're going. And so they're like, ah, and I'm like, oh, okay, where am I going? So I kind of like walked out. What my perception was is that I was walking down this hall and I get to this place and I just see, it looks like lava kind of. And I see these creatures. I don't know if they were, I don't know what they were. They were like people-ish. And they're like, mining these like rivers of light, of and I came out of the experience, the hallucination, whatever, and all I kept hearing was mine your light, mine your light, mine your light, mine your light. And I realized that that is what, I mean, it sounds silly, that is my mission, is to teach people how to mine their light, because we all have it within. It is source, it is God, it is love, whatever name you want to put there, we all have it, and we all know what it feels like, and we all know it feels really good. But what happens is we start to look outside of ourselves for it, and that's where everything falls apart. Now, when we're infants, we require assistance because we're infants. We can't do anything. But we get to a point where we forget that we can do it ourselves, and we get to a point where we need to relearn that. And so after I did that journey, I was like, I want more information, DMT gods and goddesses. I'm going to go back in. So I go back in, and they're like, and they just show me the same shit over and over again in slightly different variations. And they're laughing. They're like, oh, this is hilarious. They're such little tricksters. Oh my goodness. And they're just laughing at me. And I was getting frustrated. And I was like, and then I realized this is all they're going to tell me right now. This is what they need me to hear, and this is the message that I need to carry. And they don't want me to deviate from that. So I've been holding on to this message since 2019, which is the year I was diagnosed. We did the journey. I did all of the work. I couldn't be on chemo, so I scheduled chemo based on when I could get to San Diego to work with this man. And so I've just been carrying this idea of mining your light. I have it all over my house. I have it etched in pint glasses. I have it on like mouse pads. Mine your light, mine your light, mine your light, mine your light. And so that would be the one thing that if I could if I could teach everybody to mine their light through positive self-talk and some of the other online modules that I have, that's all I want. That's all I want. That's all I want. I want people to know that they have the capacity.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I definitely want to dive into that more in the future because that's been coming up a lot in some of like my personal research. I feel like that's something that could be a breakthrough for some people and a really big thing, kind of looking into like DMT and sort of connecting with a source or a spirit. Um, so I'd be excited to pick your brain about that. But um, for anybody that wants to get in touch with you, follow you, learn more about your journey, what are the best ways for them to do?
So I have a website. We're on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. I have vlogs all about my cancer journey if people are interested. And it's interesting. No one else might be able to tell, but like I can tell where I was in my journey based on how fat my face was. So, cause like chemo, like people are like, oh, you get skinny with chemo. Nope, not all chemo. Nope, not a thing. Especially if they give you fuck tons of steroid. You like,
Yeah,
I was like, Oompa Loompa. But I drafted it in a way where it highlights different stages of my journey so that if somebody's interested in the radiation piece or interested in the chemo piece or how did I tell my kids, it's sectioned off like that. And those are all on YouTube. So, my website, like, do you want me to just say
yeah,
it?
what's your website?
It's here to there, just like it sounds, wellness.com. And if you have questions or you want to reach out to me, you can just hit me up there. And just send me a message or on any of the socials. And it's all here to their wellness, here to their, here number two wellness. Our logo, I could show you because I have it on
Please.
pad. So this is our logo. Wait, no, it's backwards. Oh, this is right. This is our logo. Here to their wellness. And then here I have, what does it say? It says, mind the light. I know my mission. I'm in the flow. So,
That's amazing.
so
I've so enjoyed this, and it's been so great connecting with you after way too long.
sure.
Um, but I really appreciate it. And again, I sincerely hope to continue the conversation really soon.
Yeah. I'd love to. You're fun to talk to.
Same here. Same here. Well, have a beautiful day, and hopefully we'll connect sooner than later.
Sounds good. Thank you so
All
much
right.
for your time. Okay.
Thank you, Megan. Really appreciate it. Bye.
Bye.
I just hang on one sec.